Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A woman who walks alone. There is something remarkable, something deeply significant about a woman who walks alone. It is a concept that deserves reflection because in its essence, it speaks to the very core of what it means to exist as an individual in the world. To walk alone is not merely to walk in solitude, it is to walk with purpose, to walk with the weight of responsibility, and to walk with the power of self-knowledge. The power of individuality and self-determination lies at the heart of personal freedom and growth. It is the essence of what makes each person unique and capable of forging their own path in life. When a woman walks alone, she is not simply walking without company, she is asserting her right to choose her own course, to define herself on her terms. In a world that often demands conformity, the act of walking alone is a profound declaration of independence. To understand the power of individuality, we must first acknowledge the first social influence. Society often imposes norms and expectations, encouraging individuals to conform to predefined rules and behaviors. These pressures can come in many forms: cultural, familial, professional, and they create a framework that, while offering comfort and security to some, can be stifling. There's the fear of judgment, of being an outsider, can be overwhelming, and for many it is easier to follow the crowd than to stand apart. But individuality is not the rejection of community. Rather, it is the recognition that one's identity is not determined by others. It is the courage to express one's true self, to stand firm in one's beliefs, and to make decisions based on personal values rather than external influence. A woman who walks alone embodies this principle. She does not look to others to tell her who she is or what she should become. Instead, she draws strength from within, from a deep understanding that her life is hers to shape. Self-determination is the driving force behind this power. It is the belief that one has the capacity to influence the course of their own life through choices and actions. In the face of adversity, self-determination allows a person to maintain focus on their goals, to overcome obstacles, and to navigate the unpredictable terrain of life with resilience. It is a mindset that says, I am in control of my destiny, even when circumstances seem beyond control. The power of self-determination becomes evident in the way a person approaches challenges. It is easy to feel helpless in a world that often feels chaotic and indifferent. But a woman who walks alone embraces the uncertainty of life, knowing that while she cannot predict the future, she can respond to it with confidence. She understands that her decisions matter, that every choice she makes has an impact on the trajectory of her life. The strength to take ownership of those decisions without relying on others to dictate her path is what defines true self-determination. In a world that often seeks to categorize and label individuals, the act of walking alone serves as a powerful counter-narrative. It challenges the notion that one must belong to a group or adhere to a set of prescribed values to have worth. The woman who walks alone asserts that her value is not determined by her affiliations, but by her own actions and choices. She becomes a symbol of personal empowerment, of the freedom that comes with knowing who you are and standing firm in that truth. This power of individuality and self-determination is not about rejecting society or relationships. It is about cultivating the inner strength to navigate the world with authenticity and purpose. It is the recognition that at the core of every person lies the ability to chart their own course, regardless of the obstacles that may arise. Through this power, a woman who walks alone becomes a living testament to the potential of the human spirit, that the challenges of walking alone in a society that values conformity are numerous and often daunting. Conformity is deeply embedded in the fabric of modern life, whether it manifests through societal norms, cultural expectations, or the unspoken rules that govern the way people should think, behave, and even feel. These pressures create a landscape where stepping outside the prescribed boundaries often leads to discomfort, alienation, or even judgment. For a woman who walks alone, the act of choosing her own path can feel like swimming against a powerful current. One of the most significant challenges she faces is the fear of rejection. Human beings are inherently social creatures, and throughout history, survival has depended on community and belonging. In many ways, social acceptance has been a key to safety and success. So when a woman chooses to stand apart, to reject the patterns that society expects her to follow, she risks alienation. She may feel the weight of scrutiny from family, peers, and even strangers. People may question her decisions, challenge her choices, or wonder why she does not conform. The desire for validation, the instinct to fit in is strong, and it can be difficult to resist the pull of approval from others. Another challenge is the emotional burden of isolation. Even though a woman who walks alone may feel empowered by her independence, there is an inherent loneliness that accompanies this journey. Society, for all its emphasis on connection, often equates solitude with weakness or failure. In a world where social media feeds fuel comparisons, where constant connectivity is seen as a marker of success, choosing to walk alone can feel isolating. It requires an emotional resilience to withstand the loneliness that comes from not being tethered to the expectations or opinions of others. For many, this emotional burden can be overwhelming, and the temptation to seek comfort in the crowd can be strong. Walking alone means facing the challenges of self-reliance. The woman who steps away from the crowd must accept that her choices are her responsibility and that no one will come to rescue her when things go wrong. She does not have the luxury of hiding behind group decisions or sharing blame when failure strikes. Every step she takes is a reflection of her own judgment and her own strength. This sense of responsibility can be both liberating and intimidating. It demands an incredible level of self-awareness and confidence, as she must trust in her own ability to navigate the complexities of life without leaning on others for support. There is a societal tendency to undermine those who walk alone. A woman who chooses to pursue her own path may be labeled as rebellious, difficult, or even selfish. This negative judgment is often rooted in the discomfort that society feels toward those who challenge the status quo. People who walk alone often face criticism for not fitting into the accepted narrative, for not adhering to the roles expected of them. The judgments, whether spoken or unspoken, can be harsh, and they are designed to discourage deviation from the norm. There is the challenge of defining one's purpose without external guidance. Society often provides clear guidelines for what success looks like: career milestones, family structure, social status. But when a woman walks alone, she must create her own definition of success. She must decide what matters to her, independent of what others deem important. This process of self-definition is fraught with uncertainty, as it requires navigating a world that often values collective achievement over individual fulfillment. It can be a lonely and uncertain journey, but it is also the very essence of self-determination. The challenge lies in staying true to one's own vision, even when the world offers alternative paths that seem easier, safer, or more socially acceptable. Solitude is often misunderstood. In a world that constantly pushes for connectivity, relationships, and group identities, solitude is seen as a void to be avoided. Yet for those who choose to walk alone, it becomes a powerful force, a space in which personal growth and self-discovery are nurtured. The first aspect of solitude as a crucible for personal growth is that it forces a confrontation with one's own thoughts. In a world filled with constant external stimuli, social media, relationships, work demands people rarely have the space to sit with their own minds. It is easy to fall into patterns of distraction, to seek outside validation, and to rely on the input of others to shape one's perspective. But when walking alone, especially in solitude, a woman is left with only herself. She is confronted with her fears, her doubts, her ambitions, and her insecurities. This confrontation is uncomfortable, but it is also essential. Growth cannot occur without the willingness to face one's imperfections, to acknowledge the areas where change is needed, and to embrace the discomfort that comes with that realization. Solitude offers the opportunity to examine these aspects of oneself without the interference of others' opinions or expectations. Solitude also allows for the cultivation of resilience. The woman who walks alone learns, often through trial and error, that the road to personal growth is not linear. It is filled with setbacks, moments of doubt, and periods of stagnation. Yet in the solitude of her journey, she has the space to process these challenges. She is not rushed or distracted by the opinions or judgments of others. Instead, she can reflect deeply on her experiences, analyze her mistakes, and build the inner strength required to continue. Resilience is forged not in the absence of struggle, but in the ability to persevere despite it. When walking alone, resilience becomes a muscle that is developed over time through the repeated act of confronting adversity head-on and without external support. Solitude fosters a sense of independence. In the absence of others, to rely on, a woman who walks alone must trust in her own abilities. She must make decisions, solve problems, and navigate challenges without the comfort of an immediate support system. This develops a confidence in one's own judgment and resourcefulness. The ability to trust oneself is not something that can be given by others. It is something that must be earned through experience. As the woman faces obstacles, makes decisions, and moves forward without waiting for external approval, she builds a deep sense of autonomy and self-reliance. Solitude allows for deep reflection and the opportunity to reconnect with one's core values. In the rush of daily life, it is easy to lose sight of what truly matters. The expectations of others, the demands of society, and the constant barrage of information can cloud one's sense of purpose. But when walking alone, there is the time and space to reconnect with the internal compass that guides every decision. This reflection can lead to greater clarity about what is truly important, whether that involves setting new goals, realigning priorities, or making changes in one's life. The clarity that comes from solitude can be transformative, offering a fresh perspective on life and a renewed sense of direction. It is through solitude, in this deep and personal space of reflection and self-confrontation, that the woman who walks alone becomes stronger, resilient, and more in tune with her true self. The isolation of this journey is not a curse, it is a gift that allows for a profound transformation. Self-validation is one of the most powerful forces a woman can cultivate, particularly when she walks alone. In a world that constantly places emphasis on external approval, whether through social media likes, praise from colleagues, or recognition from loved ones, the idea of finding worth within oneself can seem foreign, even counterintuitive. However, for a woman who chooses to walk alone, the act of seeking external validation becomes less relevant. Instead, she learns to trust and affirm herself, to know that her worth does not depend on the approval of others, but on her own inner sense of truth and accomplishment. This ability to validate oneself is not an easy thing to develop. It requires a profound sense of self-awareness, the kind of awareness that comes from experiencing life on one's own terms. When surrounded by the opinions and judgments of others, it is easy to lose sight of one's own values, to conform to what others believe is right or desirable. For many, the desire to belong is so powerful that they measure their worth by the standards set by others. Yet when a woman walks alone, the need for this external validation begins to fade. She starts to realize that true value does not come from fitting into a mold, but from staying true to herself. A woman who walks alone learns that self-validation is rooted in actions rather than approval. It comes from accomplishing goals, making choices that align with one's own beliefs, and standing firm in one's values even when it feels like the world is pushing in the opposite direction. When no one else is around to offer praise or recognition, the sense of achievement is deeper, more personal. It becomes a reflection of internal growth rather than external affirmation. The act of acknowledging one's own accomplishments, big or small, and celebrating them is what allows her to build self-worth without relying on the validation of others. In addition, self-validation fosters a deeper sense of autonomy and personal responsibility. When a woman does not seek validation from outside sources, she takes ownership of her decisions and actions. This responsibility is empowering because it places the power of choice squarely in her hands. She is no longer beholden to the opinions of others. Her choices are hers alone to make, and their consequences are hers to face. This freedom allows her to live authentically without being swayed by the pressure to conform to others' expectations. It also deepens her self-trust. As she makes decisions and observes the outcomes, she learns to rely more on her intuition and judgment. Self-validation strengthens emotional resilience. In a world where rejection and failure are inevitable, a woman who has learned to validate herself is less likely to be defeated by the opinions of others. When others criticize her or fail to recognize her efforts, it does not shake her sense of worth because her validation comes from within. This emotional strength is crucial for facing life's challenges with grace and confidence. When validation is sourced internally, there is less fear of rejection or failure because she knows that her value is not contingent upon the approval of others. Self-validation is not about arrogance or pride, but about deep, quiet confidence. It is about knowing that one's actions are aligned with personal values and that one's worth is inherent, not dependent on the judgments or perceptions of others. The woman who walks alone cultivates this confidence through self-awareness, decision-making, and the internal affirmation of her worth. In doing so, she becomes more resilient, more self-sufficient, and more in control of her own narrative. Through the practice of self-validation, she redefines success not by the standards of society, but by her own personal responsibility is perhaps one of the most fundamental aspects of walking alone. When a woman chooses to go down a path of independence, she recognizes that the outcomes of her life are shaped by the decision makes. Unlike those who may defer to others for direction, she accepts the weight of her choices and understands that they come with consequences, both good and bad. This understanding is crucial because it fosters a sense of ownership over one's life. When a person takes full responsibility for their journey, they also claim the power to shape their future. The foundation of personal responsibility lies in the recognition that every action we take, no matter how small, has an impact. It is easy to blame external circumstances, other people, or society for misfortunes, and in some situations there may be merit to this. However, for a woman who walks alone, she understands that while external forces may shape her environment, how she responds to them is entirely within her control. This awareness fosters a deep sense of accountability. No one else can live her life for her. No one else can make her decisions. She accepts that the responsibility for her happiness, success, and growth rests entirely on her shoulders. In this regard, personal responsibility also calls for a high degree of self-awareness. When a woman walks alone, she must consistently evaluate her actions and their consequences. This is not always an easy process as it requires honesty and introspection. It is far simpler to externalize blame and avoid uncomfortable truths about one's own mistakes or shortcomings. But when a woman takes ownership of her decisions, she begins to see herself clearly. She gains a true understanding of her strengths and weaknesses, her patterns of behavior, and her impact on the world around her. This self-awareness allows her to make better decisions moving forward, ensuring that her actions align more closely with her values and goals. Personal responsibility empowers a woman to create change in her life. The act of accepting responsibility for one's circumstances, no matter how difficult, is liberating. It means that one is not waiting for others to fix things or for circumstances to change on their own. Instead, it becomes a proactive approach to life. Whether she is unhappy in her career, facing challenges in relationships, or grappling with personal doubts, a woman who embraces personal responsibility knows that she is the key to change. She can alter her path through the choices she makes. This sense of agency brings about the confidence to act, to take risks, and to step into the unknown with the understanding that she has the power to steer her own course. With this level of responsibility, however, comes the challenge of managing failures. No one is immune to setbacks, mistakes, or disappointments. The woman who walks alone is not immune to these either. But because she has accepted personal responsibility, she does not allow failures to define her. Instead, she sees them as learning experiences. She recognizes that failure is an inevitable part of growth, and that how she responds to it is far more important than the failure itself. This mindset allows her to bounce back with resilience and determination, ready to try again, to adjust her approach, or to learn from her mistakes. Personal responsibility is what gives a woman who walks alone the strength to endure, the confidence to grow, and the power to direct her own life. It is what turns challenges into opportunities and obstacles into stepping stones. By accepting full responsibility for her choices and actions, she asserts her autonomy and steps into her full potential, knowing that the trajectory of her life is entirely in her hands. The universal lesson of walking alone, beyond gender or circumstances, the realization of personal autonomy and the profound strength that comes with it. When a person, regardless of who they are, steps away from the influence of external forces and chooses to live life on their own terms, they are engaging in a process of self-discovery that transcends the limitations imposed by society. It is not about isolation in the literal sense, but about the internal journey toward understanding one's own capacity for growth, resilience, and self-direction. This lesson is essential for everyone, regardless of gender, background, or life circumstances, because it highlights the universal human need for self-definition and the power of independent thought. In a world that thrives on group identity, social conformity, and collective achievement, the act of walking alone can feel like an act of rebellion. It challenges the societal framework that encourages people to derive meaning and worth from belonging to a group, a class, or an ideology. Yet it is through walking alone that individuals often discover their true potential. The space created by solitude allows for introspection, a necessary element for discovering one's own purpose and direction in life. When a person is not bound by the expectations of others, they are free to think critically, to question assumptions, and to make decisions that are authentic to their own desires and needs. Walking alone teaches the importance of self-sufficiency. As individuals, we are often taught to rely on others for validation, support, and guidance. While relationships and connections are important, there is an undeniable strength that arises when a person realizes they are capable of navigating life's challenges independently. This strength does not come from a place of arrogance or self-isolation, but from an understanding that we have within us the resources necessary to face adversity. Whether it is making difficult decisions, handling unexpected setbacks, or forging new paths, the person who walks alone learns to rely on their own abilities and judgment. The lesson of walking alone also emphasizes resilience. Life is filled with uncertainties and challenges, and there will always be moments when things do not go as planned. When a person is walking alone, the burden of responsibility for how to handle these challenges falls squarely on their shoulders. It is during these moments of struggle and difficulty that the individual learns how to adapt and to grow and to continue moving forward despite such. Resilience is born from the ability to stand in the face of adversity without relying on others to cushion the fall. The person who walks alone understands that failure is not an endpoint, but a stepping stone to greater strength and wisdom. The lesson of walking alone reinforces the importance of self-trust. It teaches the individual to believe in their own judgment, to trust their instincts, and to take action even when the outcome is uncertain. This self-trust is built over time through the process of facing life's challenges, making decisions, and learning from the consequences. It is a trust that is not easily shaken by the opinions of others or by external circumstances. The person who walks alone becomes more attuned to their inner voice, more confident in their choices, and more assured of their ability to navigate the complexities of life. Walking alone teaches a universal truth. The power to shape one's life and future lies within the individual. It is a lesson that everyone, regardless of gender or background, must learn in order to fully step into their potential. The strength that comes from walking alone is not about rejecting others or isolating oneself, but about recognizing that the most important relationship one has is with themselves. Through this self-reliance, resilience, and trust, individuals can face any challenge with a sense of empowerment and confidence, knowing that they are architects of their own lives. Thanks for watching.